In the global theatre of leadership, the most profound messages are often sent without a single adjective. Most learners are taught that to be polite is to be formal, but in the corridors of power, be it in London, New York, or Geneva, true authority is expressed through intellectual distance. I am Grace, and this is Trinity English Scholar. Today, we are decoding the architecture of deference. We are going to explore how the Western elite navigate hierarchy. We are moving away from textbook politeness, which often feels subservient, and into the world of strategic reservation. We will learn why directness is often perceived as a lack of sophistication, and how to use the linguistic buffer to command respect from peers and superiors alike. Before we deconstruct these invisible structures, consider subscribing to this channel. To lead in a foreign culture, you must first master its subtext. By subscribing, you are committing to the highest tier of cultural intelligence. For those seeking to accelerate their evolution, Trinity English Scholar offers 5 distinct programs designed to bridge the gap between competent and commanding. Trinity is the finishing school for the modern global mind. If you are ready to master the silent laws of the room, let us begin our autopsy of Western social physics. The core concept we must decode today is intellectual distance. In many traditional cultures, deference to a superior is shown through overt humility or physical cues. However, in the Western scholarly and executive tradition, deference is shown through objectivity. When you disagree with a high-status individual, you do not attack their person, you create distance between them and their argument. We achieve this through the linguistic buffer. This involves moving the focus of the sentence away from you or I and toward the observation or the data. Take the word premise. It comes from the Latin premissa, meaning propositions set before. When you describe someone's idea as a premise rather than your thought, you have created a scholarly space. You are treating their idea as a laboratory specimen rather than a personal extension of their ego. This allows you to critique the specimen while remaining perfectly polite to the scientist. Maintaining this equilibrium requires a mastery of passive modality. Instead of saying you are making a mistake, which is high friction and low status, a Trinity scholar says there appears to be a discrepancy in the underlying assumptions. By using the word appears, you are signaling that you are an observer of reality, not an aggressor. In this 8-minute window of our lecture, I want you to visualize your words as a glass wall, transparent yet providing the necessary protection to maintain social harmony while pursuing intellectual truth. High-status communication is not about being nice, it is about being precise. When you are precise, you don't need to be aggressive. Precision is its own form of power. We are moving from a reactive state where we feel the need to defend our opinions to a sovereign state where we simply analyze the data presented to us. This is the quiet authority that defines the cultural decoder. Understanding the buffer is a theoretical necessity, but mastering it requires an acute eye for the micro shifts in real-world dialogue. We are now going to transition from the abstract to the applied. We will look at how the non-Trinity response collapses under pressure and how the scholar maintains the architecture of the room.
Example 1. Challenging a decision in a high-level meeting. Imagine you are in a boardroom. The chairman suggests a strategy that you know will fail. Non-Trinity scholar acts as a dissenter. I don't think that's a good idea. I think we will lose money if we do that because the market is changing too fast. We should wait. This is subjective English. By using I think and we should, you have turned a business problem into a personal opinion. You are now in a tug-of-war of egos with the chairman. Trinity scholar acts as an analyst. The current proposal is certainly compelling, however, a closer examination of the market indicators suggests that such a trajectory might be premature. Notice the distance. You didn't say you are wrong, you said the proposal, not the person, might be premature, not a failure. By using indicators and trajectory, you have shifted the conflict into the realm of data. You have shown deference to the person while showing zero deference to the flawed logic. Example 2. Responding to a provocative question. Imagine a peer at a social event asks a pointed, slightly aggressive question about your country's politics or your company's ethics. Non-Trinity Scholar acts as a defender. That's not true. You don't understand our situation. It's very complicated and the media is lying about us. This is defensive English. You have been hooked. You are now reacting, which is a low-status position. You have lost your cultural poise. Trinity Scholar acts as an observer. That is a prevalent narrative, certainly. However, the realities on the ground often reveal a more nuanced dialectic than what is typically portrayed. You have used prevalent narrative to acknowledge their point without agreeing with it. By using nuanced dialectic, you have signaled that you are an intellectual who operates at a higher level of complexity than simple true or false arguments. You have de-escalated the friction without retreating. Example 3. Requesting a high-level favor. Imagine you need an introduction from a very senior mentor. Non-Trinity Scholar acts as a petitioner. Can you please introduce me to the director? I really need to talk to him about my project. It's very important for me. This is scarcity English. You sound desperate. You are asking for a favor, which creates a debt. Trinity Scholar acts as a collaborator. I've been monitoring the director's recent initiatives, and I believe there is a significant synergy with my current research. I would value your perspective on the most efficacious way to initiate a dialogue. You didn't ask for a favor, you asked for perspective. By using synergy and efficacious, you have framed the meeting as a benefit to the director, not just yourself. You have maintained your status while seeking assistance.
As we conclude our time in the atrium, let us distill the architecture of deference. 1. De-personalize the conflict. Use nouns like proposal, initiative, and narrative to create distance between the person and the problem. 2. Employ passive modality. Use there appears to be instead of you are to lower social friction. 3. Master the buffer lexis. Words like premature, divergence, and nuance are your tools for navigating hierarchy with poise. And 4. Seek perspective, not favors. Frame your requests as a search for efficiency and synergy rather than a plea for help. Your mission this week is to practice the linguistic buffer. The objective rewrite. Take a disagreement you had recently. Rewrite your response in the comments, removing all I and you statements. Use the words discrepancy and trajectory. The intriguing test. The next time someone says something you disagree with, say, "That's a prevalent narrative," and wait 3 seconds before continuing. Observe the shift in the room's energy. I am Grace. At Trinity English Scholar, we don't just teach you the language, we teach you the codes of power. I will see you in our next program.